The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Welcome to Dragonmount. I'm Kathy Campbell.
I'm Rajiv Moté.
And I'm Maureen Carr. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 7. It is entitled The Dark Along the Ways. This episode was written by Amanda Kate Schumann and Catherine B. McKenna. This episode was directed by Kieran Donnelly.
Whew. We're just going to start out with how much I love the previously ons, because it really is like, okay, what's going to be important in this episode? Mm-hmm. I love it on any show that I watch, because I'm just like, ooh, what's this? What's that? What's going on? And then this one was kind of like deep fakes. Like it was just like, surprise, we're going to show you the dagger, but we're not really going to like have anything to do with it. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Or do we?
Or do we? It's true. It's true. So overall, let's start with our first thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun episode. There's lots of plot propulsion here. If I look at what this episode accomplishes, it accomplishes some really big things. It reveals who the Dragon Reborn finally is. It articulates a lot of the inter-character conflict, some of which we'd seen evidence of but didn't quite know about. It kind of brings that all to the surface, puts it out there. It's really pointed us toward the climactic finale and pulled the trigger on it. So,
yeah.
This is one of those penultimate episodes that just charges forward.
I agree. This episode just knocked my socks off. So many aspects of it. It just made the world so much deeper. The connections between the characters so much deeper. And just made it so intriguing. It just hinted at so many things to come that even if I hadn't been a Wheel Time fan already, like I would have been drawn in with this episode. There's just opens infinite possibilities where we can go going forward.
I think that the story of this episode is so strong. It has a purpose, it knows its goals, and it knows what needs to happen. And that's actually kind of why I feel like I don't love this episode as much as some of the others, especially coming after 6 and, of course, 4, which is still my number 1. Yeah. I felt the edges on this episode a lot more, and I don't know if it's because I can feel what the book cloaks are going to complain about. Like, I can sense what they're going to, make complaints for. Yeah. And I don't know if that's necessarily affecting my brain. If I just need to watch it, another 4 times, which probably, I feel like that will solve any problems that we might have with it. I felt the edges of, the hand of the creator was forcing it a little bit more in this episode than some of the previous ones, and had a harder time kind of seeing the choices that were made and, a purpose on why. And so I'm hopeful that the reasoning will come in the future, or we'll look back at it and say, okay, this is why this happened, type of a thing. Whereas before, any other changes in the previous episodes, I could kind of get an inkling on why they might be made, or at least open it enough. And so it's interesting. Of course, let me be clear that I completely trust Rafe, and I completely trust that team to produce this incredible show. And I'm really, I'm not in the back pocket of Amazon, but I still am 100% here for this show. And there are still so many things that I really, really love about it, but it just isn't one of my favorites. So I'm glad that we kind of have this comparison to kind of go through each bit and see how it lands scene by scene, but in a grouping kind of, maybe.
And Kathy, I think I agree with you in general. There are a lot of things I just sort of stopped and said, wait, what? And yeah, it's a measure of how much you trust the show and what it's doing versus whether it's going to be an open plot hole for a while. Right. And that's for everybody to decide. By the way, though, I have to say I hate the term book cloaks or right cloaks or children of the right, because, I think for a while when the books were all we had, the Wheel of Time community kind of had to circle its wagons and sort of defend itself from people who would crap on the Wheel of Time. You know,
I think
it invites comparisons, and now we're starting to factionalize within the Wheel of Time, which just kind of makes me sad.
No, absolutely, without a doubt. And I use that term not as someone who is like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm kind of sad about this, or this part didn't feel for, you know, X, Y, Z or whatever. It's more of the people that come in just to complain and make the comments on, this show is shit. This is like, how dare they do this? The books were perfect. Why did you not do XYZ? It's so stupid that they didn't go to Camelin. Why are Swan and Maureen having sex? Like all of these things where it's like, okay, you're taking this idea of the books, just like the White Cloaks kind of take the idea of the light, but then it gets morphed into a cult-like feeling where they can't actually use logic. So like presenting these things of, hey, here's why. It doesn't matter. You can't talk them down. You can't have a conversation about the show because they automatically hate it no matter what. Because it's not what they are expecting / feel like it should be.
Yeah. And you know, I think the bottom line is that you know, it should be our mission online and in person to not shit on people's joy.
Oh, definitely.
You know, there are
Yes.
people who are going to love some things and not love other things. And if we can all be together on this, then it'll be okay. But yeah, I mean,
and
environments
it's also,
get toxic.
Yeah, it's an awareness of like, yes, you cannot like things. Like I said, this is not my favorite episode. Am I still going to sit here and talk about it and talk about things that I do love? Abso-freaking-lutely. And show respect to the show and the people that created it. Yup. Absolutely going to do that. And still going to make comments on things that I thought were dumb or interesting choices, you know, however it may be presented. Yes.
That's why we're here.
Yep, exactly. So let's get started, shall we?
Let's talk about that cold open.
Oh my
Oh my God, yes.
Okay,
It was so fantastic.
I don't know about either of you. I have given birth twice.
Okay, I have not.
I tried, but didn't.
The idea of having to go through that much of a fight while in active labor. Holy cow, Tigraine is a badass.
I didn't know whether to refer to her by her name that's only in the books, Shail,
that's true.
or in the credits.
Well, we don't know that yet either.
She's Tigraine
Do we?
Montier.
What's she listed in the credits?
She was listed in the credits as Tigraine Montier.
Okay.
Oh, she is. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, then yes. Then we can say Tigraine.
This fight scene is one of the beautiful examples of a dance and a dance of the spears. This
Dancing the
is
Spears.
the first time that we've really seen the Aiel fight, right?
It's the first time we've
Yes.
seen a live Aiel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And what an incredible example of what a badass is. Wow. So strictly speaking, when you're about to give birth, your center of balance is already completely whack. And the thought of being able to not just like move around like this while in active labor, but to do it so controlled and so well when you have this like 10 to 15 pound weight pulling you forward and like it's just hella impressive.
Now, did that strain credulity for you? Because it kind of did for me. I mean, I haven't been pregnant, but, you know, watching what my wife went through.
I will say that when my very first birth, and I was really lucky. Both of my births, the labor was like 5 hours or 5.5 hours, and I pushed for like 10 minutes for both.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So it was very short, very quick, very intense. But the first birth, I distinctly remember that if somebody had told me to do anything, I would have done whatever I could have to make it happen. So like you kind of get into this process, this mental state of, okay, you're going to have a baby. Whatever your body is doing it's going to do what it needs to do. It's going to happen. Obviously, I know that this is not everyone's situation. Just putting that out there. This was my experience. And so I absolutely can see this happening. The part that was incredulous was the fact that she was able to balance so well.
Yeah.
For somebody that had spent so many years honing their fight skills and their body and like doing all of the walking and the really hardened Aiel lifestyle, without a doubt, like your body is going to do what it needs to do to survive and protect that baby. And that includes being able to fight that well.
I guess I was looking at it as, okay, what is the narrative purpose of this scene, at least that part of it? And it's like, this is an Aiel who's at a disadvantage, who's at a physical disadvantage right now. Like you said, center of balance is off. She's going through a lot of pain right now, and she can do this. So what does that mean when we meet Aiel soldiers who aren't encumbered in this way?
Yeah, who are in active labor.
Yeah. And we've had some indications that one of our characters might be an Aiel, or everybody who has seen the world thinks he's an Aiel. So he's of that stock. What happens when he meets these people? Right now, he doesn't really know how to fight yet, does he?
No.
No, not really.
He knows
we
how to
one
shoot
thing-
a bow and arrow.
he does know how to shoot the bow.
One thing that stood out to me is that once she goes into like active labor, she takes off her veil. And Thom revealed to us that if they're not veiled, they're not a threat. So at this point, she's like, hey guys, like we need to take a time out. I'm taking off my veil. Please don't kill me. And then they still come at her and she's forced to kill with her veil off.
Right.
And we don't know what that means yet in the show, but I'm anticipating it's something important. Like, why is there a reason they veil when they kill? And the fact that she's killing without being veiled, is that a taboo? Is that something? Is that, you know, like a bad omen? Is that why she died? Like, there's so many things at play.
Desperation. We don't know. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then one thing I noticed was there are catapults firing onto the slope. So presumably from the walls of Tar-Valon, they're doing flaming cannonballs, flaming pitch cannonballs onto the mountainside. That's something I guess I didn't expect in Wheel of Time Warfare, although I don't know why, but they haven't described it that way. But at first I thought, oh my God, are they using the one power in battle right now? But no, we see catapults on the grounds.
So she's about to give birth, you know, tears the pants so the baby can come out, all of that, and then held at sword point by a sword that looks really familiar.
Got that bird on it.
And then, oh, by the way, here's credits.
Yeah.
What a cold open. What a way to pull it in.
It was fun.
Love
I'm
it.
starting to like these cold opens. I almost look forward to them more than anything else, just because they are showing us scenes that aren't part of the story. It's like a little prologue we get every time. You know, each book had a prologue, or almost each book had a prologue, and I love prologues.
Yeah.
But we get a little scene that sort of informs the current day, but sheds light on the past.
Yeah, I like this narrative choice. Instead of jumping straight into the story or making it like important about this, it's kind of a way to tell a shorter period of story that will be, you know, called back in the rest of the episode, but a way to showcase things. I mean, so we saw in the trailers, we saw, you know, an Aiel grabbing the cloak and running, and we're like, oh my gosh, the blood snow. What does this mean? How are they going to do this? What's this going to happen? And the fact that it was in a cold open is just a perfect place to do it. And I love that.
Right.
All right. So after the credits, we are hanging out in the ways.
Yeah, we're in complete darkness, and all we hear are voices at first, and they're talking about Matt. So Matt was left behind last episode, and we get to hear everybody's reaction to that, and some of it's surprising. I think we talked about it before, either on the podcast or just among ourselves, and Maureen's stance was kind of expected. Hey, that's the wheel. Where, if he didn't come, he didn't come, and he was meant not to come then. But then she also calls out this darkness in him, and she's very confident about it.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Yeah, that if he is the dragon and gets near the Dark One, he could be so easily corrupted. And that's just horrifying to think about, because Matt's not that dark, not yet. And so it's a little bit shocking to me. Like, yeah, he's had a hard life. Yeah, he's not making the best choices, but for Maureen to cast him aside like that and think that the darkness is overwhelming him so much just seems so unfair.
I think a lot of it has to do with how long the dagger was with him and how that would affect his personality and his life.
And she made that comment that it was feeding on him as well as him feeding on it. It felt like quite the accusation for someone who didn't know him at all. And, you know, there's that plays out later on. Egwene also says he left us. He betrayed us, basically.
Yeah, Egwene really feels the betrayal, whereas the rest of the Two Rivers folk feel like they betrayed him by not pulling him in. I mean, I gotta say, I side with Eggy on this, because he just chose not to come.
Yeah, I agree.
His choice was made. It wasn't an accidental left behind.
There was nothing. Not move closer.
Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, I'm almost through and you closed the gates on me or whatnot. But then also there's a whole fact of like, how they're talking about how it's impossible to reopen the Waygate because channeling will call Mashin Shin.
Right.
And I'm like, so how are they going to get out?
Right. Then
that's
it's okay.
That's a whole thing we need to talk about.
That we got to talk about this right now. This is one of the things,
okay.
the major things that I'm just like, really? So to get into, and we'll talk a little bit more in the book discussion part of things, but the fact that you have to channel to get in, and the entire time they were going through the ways, I'm like, well, how are they going to get out? Like, if you can't channel, like, not even we can't channel because it'll call the Black Wind, but it's impossible. And that was the word that was used. I'm like, well, how the heck are you going to get out on the other side?
But we find that not to be true. Like, I mean, you do have to channel to get out, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't recall them using that word, impossible.
Yeah, I didn't hear impossible either.
Okay. And it's entirely possible that that's just what I wrote down. But I was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, and there's a whole convergence of things because, you know, Loyal is talking about how the ways used to be verdant. The whole reason they have Loyal along is because he's the only one who can read the guiding stones. So we still have this notion of the ways belong to the Ogier. They were created through the One Power, but they belong to the Ogier. I think one of the bonus scenes, the animated extra material in Prime talks about the Ogier and talks about how in the steading you can't channel the One Power. It's not there. So these are not a people who channel. So what is up with the ways that you can only exit and enter it through channeling, or was this because of the corruption?
Yeah, we don't know if they can only get in and out by channeling. We just know that's Maureen's method for getting in or out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because don't we see somebody else exit and they don't channel, as far as I know?
Well, and that's the question. What does it mean? We see in the lightning flash, we see Padan Fain there, completely unperturbed, walking in the dark.
Hanging out.
Just fine with being in the ways. He has gotten in. He didn't sneak in while the weave was closing. He got in on his own, or had some assistance somewhere, but more to the point, he got out as well, seemingly on his own, unless there was somebody
with
hiding.
The wind hanging out by
the wind right there.
With the wind perfectly fine with him. In fact, we see the flash of him as the wind starts to come. So Fane's got some abilities here.
So spooky, so scary. The ways felt so ominous. I love how they the darkness just like dropped off, and yet again, this is where I felt the edges of the production. It was exactly a set. And like, obviously it was a set, but there was no, I don't know. It felt like the little tiles that you get from a Remnants shop that you put on the, I don't know. It was, yeah.
You were not convinced by the ways.
I was not convinced by the ways.
That's fair.
Which is really disappointing because I know that they talked about filming in the ways and that they were terrifying. And it makes me sad that it didn't transfer as well to film, in my opinion, as apparently it was in real life. And Perrin sees that first guiding first. Don't know what that means, but I love how they showed it was, pitch black and no one could see anything until they get closer, and it's the guiding, and the guiding is destroyed, and oh my goodness, what's going on? Thank goodness you have Loyal, though, to try and figure out and decipher which direction to go.
And there was a little bit of a mystery there, which is resolved within this episode, which is nice. The guiding stone has been defaced. Someone's trying to erase how to navigate the ways. And we learn that Trollocs are in the ways, and that is how they got to the two rivers. And, we know that Pedonfane was there right during the Trolloc attack. We know he just kind of sauntered off as they were attacking.
Fane is everywhere.
And he was whistling right before.
Well, enough that it woke up Egwene. Like, why would he want to give away his presence? Like, that just seemed weird.
I mean, who's to say that the channeling is what summoned it? Maybe he was whistling for his dog.
Whistling for it? Maybe. Yeah. That's possible.
Maybe. I don't know.
Which makes him even scarier.
Yeah, either way, Egwene, attacks with channeling, and
or so we think.
Either way, channeling occurs.
Channeling occurs.
So channeling was done by somebody.
And it gets cold.
Yes, to get we get our friend, the Black Wind, coming to attack. Oh my gosh, we gotta run! Ah!
And so this confused me for a second, because I thought their destination was Faldara, and it's still a day away. And then they're like, how far is the gateway? And it's like, oh, it's right here.
Well, their destination was
the Eye of the World. So there's a way gate there.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is what the Shadow is using to transport its troops.
Spoiler.
So the way gate in the Blight.
Spoiler for another concern I had is locations. Like, okay, so it's a day's travel in the ways, an additional day's travel in the ways to get to the Eye of the World. But they're like, okay, Faldara's here, and then suddenly it's another day's trip. Like in the future, we talk about how it's a day's trip to the what?
Hey, space doesn't work in the same way.
I have concerns.
To me, out of all of the concerns, I'm most able to accept that. Okay, distances skew, warp, whatever. Maybe there are bridges.
But it's not the same. It shouldn't be the same.
It shouldn't be the same.
It shouldn't be the same, but coincidentally, it is.
Yes. Yeah, no. But we get all sorts of voices and yelling. I can't wait to watch this with the subtitles to be able to better read what is being said from the wind.
So I did put it on repeat, and I think I've gotten everything.
Oh, nice.
Do you want me to kind of catalog what the wind says to everybody? And by the way, it doesn't say anything to Loyal.
Oh, interesting.
That's true. Yeah. I bet it did. I bet we just didn't see it.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
To Moraine, you're wrong about everything. You'll kill these children and call it heroism. To Egwene, you're an imposter, a fraud. To Rand, Egwene will never love you as much as you love her. She already left you once. She'll leave you again. To Perrin, and this cuts the most. You wanted Layla dead, out of the way. That's why you killed her, because you loved another woman more than your wife. To Lan, you can't protect her. You'll watch her die. And I think, with the Steppen episode, that is probably his worst fear right now.
Yeah.
Although it is ambiguous on who that her is.
Oh, I was totally thinking Nynaeve.
Well, there you go.
That's just
There
where
you
my
go.
mind goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, okay, I can see the wind kind of telling it could be either way. Like it could be by saying her, Lan can infer whichever.
Yep. And it was interesting because the next person who hears Machin Shin is Nynaeve. And I had to watch this a couple times because what the wind says could have applied to Lan. It says to her, "You'll hear their screams like you heard your parents." Both of them, we learned in this episode, have lost their parents and witnessed it. "And you'll do nothing to save them." Now that's interesting because Lan, his duty would be to let the ones who aren't the dragon die. You lost Matt. Now this is more Nynaeve. You lost Matt, and now you'll lose the others one by one until you have nothing and no one. And that's when Nynaeve just kind of, she gets angry from that. And, she bursts with the power to shield against Machin Shin. And of course, Lan runs and saves Nynaeve as Moiraine's opening the gate. I will say my failed theory, my theory of how the Dragon Reborn was going to be revealed was that everybody was trying to, like Moiraine would be trying to fight off Machin Shin, Nynaeve would be trying, they're trying to open the way gate, and then Rand would be the one to channel and like push Machin Shin back. But that's not what happened.
Nope, we got Nynaeve using her power to protect again. That was so epic. I love how they did it, and I love how Lan came up behind her to bring her out, because she probably would have stood there until she died.
Yeah, she would have. But this is the very first thing in the whole TV show so far where I was like, oh, come on. Because I hated that Machin Shin did not say, hear their screams, tear their blood.
Oh, I know.
Right?
I know.
Like, I wanted to hear that creepy, and it's like, no, now it gave them like taunting. It's like, that's not scary.
Yeah.
It's not scary, but the way I thought of it, and it occurred to me as I was watching it, because I was wondering whether they were going to show Machin Shin like the one from the book. But, they say to make a dense narrative like you have to in a show, everything has to at least pull double duty. And if we're going to have a voice whispering to scare some people, let's use it as a character moment as well. So I get the choice.
It was just kind of like, okay. But that's fine. We made it to Faldera.
Yeah.
And thankfully they have friends in these borderlands. I love the city feels so different from Tarvalon, and not just because of the colors, but like the architecture is different. I cannot wait to have an architect reacts to buildings in the Wheel of Time. Tag me when that video exists, just because I love this. I love it. I love it so much. And getting to have another culture, getting to see that made me really excited.
Yes.
I think that's what was fun for me about this episode, is brand new locations that didn't look like anything we'd seen before.
Yeah.
So, the Ways was obviously unique. Faldara was cool. And then, when we get to the end, we'll talk about the Blight. But this world has gotten bigger, and it's very, every location is distinct, which is nice.
Yes. I loved the greeting that they all received from the warriors, including, I don't know about you, but my favorite, Faldaran Uno.
And he's cussing, which is great.
And he's cussing, and he's cussing in Watt terms, and he's got the eye patch. I am obsessed with him, and I'm obsessed with the actor that plays him, and how much he loves the books, and what a fan of the fandom he is. I was excited for this little treat because he hadn't been announced until recently, because
and he was announced for season 2, so I didn't expect to see him.
I didn't expect him at all, and then he was there, so it was great. Okay, can we talk about Lord Agelmar's coat real quick?
Yes,
because holy cow, was it beautiful! That full bird on the back, and like, okay, but talk about like helping keep your posture, because I feel like having, the beak digging into your back if you lean against the back of the chair probably wouldn't be the most comfortable. It was epic. I personally thought it was really great to have a male costume be as extravagant as this and be as beautiful, and I just want to pet his feathers. Do you think he'd let me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure
this guy is kind of full of himself. He was not real happy to see Maureen.
Well, and it makes sense though, because he thought that she was coming to give him advice on how to deal with the Trollocs, and clearly not.
Yep. That's what's kind of cool is we saw Tyr's last episode, the country of Tyr, how it views Aes Sedai. And now we see the country of Shinar. They are allies. They are ostensible allies of the White Tower. But they know that Aes Sedai are meddlers, and they will try to extend their influence. He starts up the conversation saying, you wasted your time. I got things under control. He's not even listening to Maureen.
And also another contrast, like in Tyr, as soon as Siuan channeled, she was shipped off. But here, even Agelmar's sister, Amalisa, can channel, and she's still part of the inner circle of the royalty. Her channeling abilities don't diminish her.
Right, and she was strong enough to be able to get the ring without a stone, which I thought was really interesting. There'd been a lot of talk about, what happens for the different levels with, like, when do you get the ring, like, all of that. And so she was powerful enough to get the ring, not powerful enough to become full Aes Sedai. And so that was a nice little, like, nugget of information on, what kind of is going on, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, it's a little bit of world building where we've learned now that, yes, there is a rigorous process and there are standards that the Aes Sedai have for their initiates. And, there are people who don't pass muster. And they go out in the world and they can channel a little bit. They're not up to snuff to be full sisters, so they find other roles for themselves. And her loyalties, Amalisa has to remind Maureen, her loyalty is to her nation, not to the tower.
But there's enough of a tie there for her to contact somebody for Maureen to tell the Red Aja, which was a big surprise to me. That Maureen singled out the Red Aja to find that.
Like, what a dick move that was. Like, what? Like, where did that motivation come from?
Dick move, yeah.
Part of me wonders if she knows that he can't actually channel, and so why not have these people that are really good at finding men find the men with nothing to fear? Like, that's my assumption. That
although she still doesn't deny that he could be the dragon, she just doesn't want him anywhere near the Dark One.
Yeah.
So I don't know that she knows for certain.
I think I don't know. But again, it's one of those things where either she knows that he can't channel and it's not a dick move, or it's an absolute dick move because she doesn't know if he can channel or not, but doesn't care if they're going to find him and gentle him.
I mean, and this is where we start running into, is this plot hole territory or is this characterization? Because I mean, we started to see this even last episode and the episode before. Moraine is guessing here.
Yeah.
Both Moraine and Siuan are guessing, and they don't have a plan. They're winging it completely here. Moraine is exuding a lot of confidence, both as a facade, but also sort of internally trying to say, I know what's right. I've got my mission. I'm going to stick to it. And she makes this comment, and she makes it in context of Mach and Shin, but I think it speaks to what she's going through as well. She says, if you allow doubt, then you're on the slide towards the Dark One winning. Yeah. Doubt is the first step towards surrender to the dark, is the quotation. Yeah. She's going to make decisions, and she's going to not second guess herself. And I think that's getting her in trouble.
I agree.
If it's a plot point, then this is Maureen's hubris that is going to set her up for a fall.
Yeah.
And we know the fall's coming because Min said so.
Min said so, right?
Oh my goodness. Maureen takes all of the crew to visit Min in a tavern. The seer, as Lady Amalisa says, she's able to find out which inn, and they go hang out. On their way there, Perrin sees Fane and is like, what? Is Fane? Like, what's Fane doing? And
he's really not trying to be that discreet, is he?
No, but nobody else saw him other than Perrin, which says a lot. So I think he's discreet enough to make a decision, but not
And I mean,
overly.
Rand saw him in Tar Valon too, and he was just having a drink and, looking at parrots. But
yeah. Yes. But they hang out in a tavern, and we learn a little bit about what the seer means as Min reads all of the people.
And I do have notes on this if you want the catalog.
Yes, give it to us, Rajiv.
Okay,
give it to us.
so Min and her viewings. I'll preface this by saying I was a little disappointed here. This is a place where Rafe could have dropped a lot of hints about what he was planning, and he played it real close to the vest. So, so let's go through the viewings.
Yes.
Perrin, one of the big brooding guys.
Which one?
Which one?
They're both big. They're both
both broody. I loved that.
Perrin has yellow eyes and blood running down his chin.
Pretty obvious.
We don't know if it has additional meaning, but he's Wolf Boy. The Redhead. Now this is the interesting one, and I think we have we've been speculating on this. The Redhead, Rand, is holding a baby, and Maureen asks, "Do you know whose baby?" And Min says, "Hey, one baby looks like another. I don't know."
Yeah, they're all the same.
They're all the same.
Yeah, which I thought was really interesting that was the only thing that Rand had.
Now, what's interesting is Maureen then asks about the girls, plural. She asks about them together. She doesn't go from one to the other.
Yeah.
And the answer is probably what we could have predicted: a white flame, a ring of gold. They're going to become Aes Sedai, right?
Yeah, this was another part where it felt like Snapchat filters. The scene felt like they put an Instagram filter over it. I was really disappointed. Like they overly softened everything. It just was like, really? I was hoping for something a little bit. I don't even know.
See, this is exactly how I pictured it from the books. Little images in auras floating around these guys. And to me, this was like one of the most faithful to the books things that I've seen in the show. So I
agree with like the structure of it. I don't agree with not quality necessarily. It felt too soft. Like it was something you would do on Snapchat.
So you wanted a better visualization.
But
what would you do? Like a cut scene or?
No. I'm fine with like the overlays, but you could barely tell that Perrin had blood on his face.
That's true. And this was definitely a place where I was wondering, I'm watching it on my laptop right now because that's what we have access to. When I watch it on the big TV, will it appear clearer?
So I'm wondering, I can't wait to watch it again on the big screen because I'm wondering if it will change. Just felt like you could barely tell what was like the overlay or whatever, and that was a little disappointing. So we'll see. I'm like, obviously I'm not gonna like throw my computer against the wall and say screw this. I'm quitting.
Damn it, that's a Snapchat filter.
But it did feel it felt a little disappointing, and so
I think maybe I was better off because I've never used Snapchat. So
that must be it. I am extensively knowledgeable in all of the social media overlay things, and I know that like you can make your cat look like an angel, and it felt like that.
Got it. Okay, there are a few more viewings here, And now we get the Gestalt viewing. So there's an aspect of what Min sees when all of the four are together. All of the four are linked. And then we get a little speech that is an echo of one she gave in the books. There are sparks around all of them. There's a shadow trying to extinguish the sparks or press against it. But as they're together, the sparks are fighting back against that shadow. And the resolution of the viewing, apparently it makes a difference, means that they are all important to the pattern, and all four are equally important to the pattern, which is interesting. And then Maureen notices Min kind of taking a look at her and says, "Hey, you saw something about me. What is it?"
What's going on?
Min says, "The Amyrlin in full regalia will be your downfall."
So ominous. And
I love it.
Maureen's face was just like, oh my gosh, so stressful.
Although, the first thing I think of when that happened was how we had another scene in the last episode where the oath was supposed to be to the Amyrlin, but she instead said an oath to Swan Sanche. So the Amyrlin is a title. It can belong to anyone. So we don't know what's going on here.
I love Min in the future. She looked great. She looked exactly like I was expecting. I can't wait to get more of her. But yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, but they're looking to, okay, what's the plan, Stan? They're going to leave at dawn.
So in my notes, I called this the breaking of the fellowship. We're all in a room together, and suddenly they're all at each other's throats. And it's Machin Shin revelations. Machin Shin doesn't lie, and Maureen never says what it says is untrue. It just says, don't listen to that wind.
Right.
It's saying some stuff that is going to cut you to the core. And what it starts with is let's talk about this. And as far as Maureen's plan goes, Maureen reveals to the group now that when they get to the eye, anybody who is not a dragon is going to die.
Surprise!
Wow, that's kind of a
why?
Revelation here.
And how does she get that?
How does she know that?
So this is probably one of my biggest gripes right now is Maureen has become the point of view character of this season. So we're closest to her than any other character. But we still don't know why she knows what she knows, what she's suspecting she knows but isn't sure of, and we have no ability to judge when she might be misinterpreting things. Like, we don't have any of the primary sources.
Yeah. And so I think it's pretty safe to say that always is the potential answer. That, you don't know when what's going on. And I think it's important to know that the truth that the Aes Sedai says is not always the truth that you hear.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve does point that out. She says it 100%. If Maureen thinks it's true, she can say it, whether it's true or not.
But I love how they kind of broke down more about what this Aes Sedai truth means.
Yeah.
And laid that out a little bit as they try and decide whether they want to go or not. And it's kind of important to be like, okay, we don't need to make this decision right now, but hey, if you're going to go, let's go at dawn.
And I think that the choice was so wise that throughout the show, they've been pushing back on whether Maureen's got the right of it, or, even if she's working in their best interest at all. They've been suspicious. Egwene's been probably the most on board with what Maureen is saying, mainly because her ambitions lie on Maureen's entourage. But they've never fully signed on to what she's saying. And this is a place where they do break it down. And even Egwene says, you know what? I'm not doing this because Maureen says it's right. I'm doing this because if there's a chance that it's right, then we have a duty to do it.
Yeah, and I think the strength of Egwene's characters here is huge. It's like, look, she is going to do whatever it takes to protect people, to protect anyone and everyone that's involved. Her friends, and even if that means that she has to die, like she's willing to do that.
Yeah. And it puts her directly against Nynaeve, who is equally, if not more strong, but her scope, Nynaeve's scope is she's still thinking of her village. And Egwene has started to think of the world.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I'm noticing is Moiraine's getting more and more frazzled looking. Like her grip on this is slowly getting released. And it's not going to be long before she has like this breakdown because she's barely hanging on.
Yeah, the stress, you can just feel it, that she's trying to keep the world together. She's so close to it.
Eyes are red-rimmed. Yeah, totally.
And I appreciate that in a way that I didn't think that I would. And we got to talk about Perrin and Rand.
Yeah. Oh, there's some head-to-head right there. And Perrin's voice like went 2 octaves deeper. I was like, oh, okay.
They're arguing. Egwene thinks that Matt can't be the dragon.
It was this is the Egwene I recognized from the books.
And he left us once again, that argument. And then Nynaeve comes in and basically is like, you're fighting over Egwene again.
Like she's a trophy to be won. And none of the 3 like that.
No, because none of them wanted to like talk about that. And we learned that Perrin proposed to Layla the day that Rand and Egwene got together. I wonder if that's why she didn't go to Egwene's like magical woman event.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. That's been a long simmering mystery since episode 1. She died, so it didn't seem like it would be important, but actually it's kind of important.
Perrin does say the only woman I've ever loved was my wife, and I 100% believe he meant it. And even when Layla did refuse to go to Egwene's ceremony, he's hugging Layla and saying, I love you. And she's like, I know. So I think Perrin's there in love with his wife, and I think others perceive that he's not.
But it's really interesting that he says those words because it's almost like he's arguing with Much and Shin now.
Well, and 2, I think it's possible to love more than one person and
definitely.
to love the idea of what in love with Egwene would have been. And then not necessarily like, okay, fine, I guess I'll marry Layla, so much as, okay, Egwene is not for me. Yeah. It felt awkward. It felt painful. But I'm glad we got that kind of out of the way. And Nynaeve feels bad.
Do you have the sense that it is out of the way, or do you have the sense that this is a simmering plot point that could...
No, it's out of the way.
Yeah, I think it's done.
It's done.
I hope
been
so.
vocalized now. Yeah, I don't need a love triangle like this.
No,
Definitely.
there's no way.
I'm
too
glad.
much other
Let's
story to
hope.
tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Including a conversation with Maureen and Lan, talking about, Lan thinks that they'll come. Maureen isn't sure, but there's a semblance of a choice.
I love that line. Fantastic.
I love that so much.
Semblance of a choice, right.
That's all they needed. Was just, sometimes that's all you need. Like just being able to know I have a different option. And then you're like, okay, well, if I have an option, I can do the hard thing, because if I wanted to, I wouldn't have to do the hard thing.
Yep. And especially for these 2 river folk who are very stubborn, being able to give them a semblance of a choice means that they, when they make the choice that they believe is correct, then being able to turn around and say, okay, I've made this choice and now I'm going to go full throttle, live with this choice the way that it was.
You don't force the river, you guide it.
Yes, exactly.
But I think what this scene with the 2, and, they allude to their history and when they first met, but, just in case it wasn't clear from Moiraine's initial declaration, both of them know this is a suicide mission. They are preparing to die. So Moiraine says, don't you have some people to say goodbye to? Or in this town, in the city.
But even before that, when Maureen and Lan are talking and Maureen says, I'm not your whole world or whatever. And then Lan says, before I met you, I had nothing to live for and nothing to die for. And now you've given me both. And everything he says just makes my heart beat fast.
And, Maureen catches that and she knows that actually that's not the case anymore. He has something else to live for now.
And that she likes her. The wisdom.
Yes, that was sweet. Mm-hmm.
That was so sweet. And it makes me wonder if she was going to try and leave Lan behind anyways.
That's possible.
Know.
Well,
Yeah, we know they end up going alone. Spoiler, I guess.
Spoiler for the end of this podcast.
Yeah. So she manages to leave him behind. So I think at this point she was hoping to be able to let him live, and so that she would die because, of course, in my mind, she's not a dragon. She's not the dragon reborn. So she's expecting to die as well in respect and honor of...
Yep. Getting the dragon to do the thing that needs to do. And, this puts new color then on, was it episode 5, I think, when they were talking about, Maureen says, I think that it's possible to release a warder from the bond, to unhook that bond. Yeah. She's been thinking about this. So she sees this as an eventuality, and she does not want Lan to die.
I wonder if she doesn't know who the dragon is right now yet.
Right.
And I think she is fairly certain that it's not Nynaeve anymore. And that's why she's like, okay, I like the wisdom. I like you with her. You can hang out together.
Yeah, definitely. But Lan's been supportive of Maureen and Suan. So I like that Maureen is supportive of him when he tries to form a relationship.
Yeah. And now the sweetest scene, Lan going to visit family, quote unquote family, in town, and sees, senses Nynaeve following, and the little smile he had on his face when he could tell that she was there was so
she's
cute.
taking it a little too far. This is stalker behavior.
Yeah.
I loved this scene. I think in my notes I put Lan, the family man. He's a man with a community still.
Yeah.
However small. One of them is, we learn later, is the man who saved him from the Blight when his kingdom was overtaken by the Blight. They settled in Shinar. And they call him the uncrowned king. They call him the heir to the Daishan.
And this moment was so sweet and welcoming. Lan comes in and they welcome him around. Hey, do you want dinner? Yes, of course. And Nynaeve is looking and getting emotional, and then she almost blinks and he's gone, and she's like, oh no, where is he? And he's standing out right there. Right. And this flirt, oh my gosh, the flirting. Are you just going to stand there, or do you plan to come in?
He was flirting with her back in the ways.
Oh yes.
Yes, he was.
And they had just the sweetest dinner, a family. When she comes in, and what's his face is talking to Lan, it's like, she is beautiful. I
haven't noticed.
Lies.
So and she smiles when she hears that. And she's been accepted by his family. That's the vibe of this scene. So, it's very much courtship. Oh, we didn't expect it of him. He's got this secret side to him that we never knew. And that's what we see about Lan. He's got this soft, nurturing side.
The children can't fake this. And you can see how excited they are for Lan to be here. And it was just beautiful. It was so sweet. Such a great moment. And then the walking to the rooms and that
so this is me.
Yeah. Oh, this is my room.
His sudden hesitation, where is that coming from? As far as they know, this is their last night on Earth. So I'm curious why he's hesitating. Is it just he's scared?
It's like, Maureen, fuzz the bond. No, I'm kidding.
I think it's a belief that he doesn't want to, like he said in the books, and this is a little bit of a book spoiler, but I'm going to put it here anyways, is this idea of he doesn't want to leave someone a widow.
Mm-hmm.
And
she's going to die too. She's not a dragon.
He doesn't know that for sure.
I am sure that he would do everything. Like his scenario is, I'm going to get her out if she's threatened.
I think there's an uncertainty still, even though they spent all night together. I think there is still a worry and a concern of taking it too far, to where he can't turn back. He can't.
Yeah. Okay. I can see that. Like the banter is fine, but once it's physical, then it's.
Well, also, you can't complete the mission then. You can't make the hard choices because you have tied your heart to someone else.
But don't worry. Nynaeve is here to save the day. Or save the night, maybe?
Yes.
We see the epic scars on Lan's back. Nynaeve comes in, and I just was like, I squealed and got a little misty-eyed with this.
You know what I wanted? I wanted a line, a little dig on Maureen. I would have healed you. I would have healed every scar on you.
I'm glad that she didn't, because I didn't want anybody else in the room with them.
And remind him of that.
Yeah. Also, the layers of consent. So she has clearly come into his space and is like, hey, do you want me to go? And he steps forward.
And they take small little steps towards each other until they're meeting in the middle.
Yes, which I stan a consenting relationship. And this is how you do it. This is how, instead of saying, I would like to kiss you, you can get the implied consent and awareness that both parties want to be involved in this situation without having a signed contract. A beautiful thing to see. And then fade.
Right. Fade to Rand practicing archery and getting close to the target, but not hitting it right now.
Yeah, he's doing okay.
Yeah. Maybe he's got some stuff on his mind. And Egwene comes over and says, I've waited an hour for you to come and apologize. This was totally book Egwene too, so I totally recognized her there. And he said something that was really funny. It just shows how much he knows her. Out of a lot of experience, I know that when you're ready to talk, you'll find me. Oh, and I'm sorry.
I love that. And then on top of that is the whole awareness of why she's mad at him. Not mad that he was jealous about Perrin, but mad that she does care about Matt.
I didn't see that she did. I sympathize with Rand here. She did not lead me to believe that she would die for Matt. That wasn't the vibe she was giving off. But now she's willing to say it. I
think so, because, that was the whole conversation at the beginning of the Ways, though. That's layered in there, and the fact that they were basically ganging up on her, that she was still wondering about Matt and making sure that he was okay. I can see it.
Yeah, I think she would. Same as Nynaeve. She was training to be the wisdom, which means she would have done anything and everything in her power to save Matt if needed.
Yeah.
Agree to disagree with that, but I think she came around.
Yeah, well, and they decided to go to the tower together. Every Aes Sedai needs a warder.
So that's a really interesting dynamic, and this is where again, I think perspectives will differ on this. When Egwene thought that her future was being a wisdom, and wisdoms don't marry, she was gonna dump him. Then she says, I just want to be friends. Okay, I'll be friends. And then she needs to cuddle in the Ways because it's scary, so he cuddles with her. And then they go forward, and suddenly they're together again. And Rand actually says that he wants her to pursue her career, her passion, which is now to become an Aes Sedai. Oh, now there's a space for Rand within that structure. Well, which is as a warder, not a husband, a warder.
I think the difference here is that Egwene has seen more about what is possible in an Aes Sedai Warder relationship.
Yeah.
She's been exposed to more than just the stories and more than just what the day and or a half, maybe two, of seeing how Lan and Moiraine work together. Like, obviously she didn't see, Alana and her warders, but I'm pretty sure that, like, they talked about it.
Well, and in the Two Rivers, if she had been the wisdom, there's decades and centuries, if not, centuries of tradition. The wisdom does not marry. The wisdom does not have children. The wisdom does not show favoritism. The Aes Sedai aren't put into that box.
Clearly, sex outside of marriage is not necessarily a taboo subject, so it doesn't necessarily
And even for Two
matter
Rivers
as
folks,
much.
they're fine with that.
But either way, they're going to support each other.
So if it's you, she says, I'll stand by you no matter what happens. So they're being a little more equal about this.
And she does admit that it was a mistake to leave Rand behind.
That's right,
before.
she does.
Yeah.
And she says that. She doesn't want to make that mistake again.
Yeah.
I mean, so sometimes people grow and learn.
Right, and also that she can still be with him. And there's that level of fatalism also of like, okay, who knows what the world is going to bring. Let's, live this dream, even though we're all going to die, maybe. Let's pretend. Let's live the dream of getting to go to the tower together.
So here's a question. Earlier we had a viewing of Min's viewing of Rand carrying a dark-haired baby. Are we supposed to think at this point that it might be Egwene's?
I could see how we would make that assumption because he's still young in the image. It's not an old Rand. It's current Rand. So it's within the next year or two.
Maybe.
Maybe tonight is when it started.
Who knows? Who knows? But they're gonna hang out together.
Nynaeve's not sleeping in her bed. Rand's not sleeping in his bed.
Right. It's party time. And Nynaeve snuck out, getting dressed before Lan wakes up. I think the embarrassment here was not that they had sex, but that it was so deeply intimate in a scary way that you want to take out that awkwardness. Right. But he wakes up. He's like, "What? You're leaving? I was gonna get coffee and bagels." But Nynaeve uses it as a chance to ask questions, and we get a little exposition about what Daishan means, because we heard him called it many times from a variety of different people.
said it. The guy I'm calling Bukama said it.
And we learn more about Lan and his backstory and what happened here, and that he is a king without a kingdom, a boy without a family, and now you finally belong
to her.
To her.
Doesn't own you, only in the way those kids own you.
I love how Lan reversed that out. It's like, we both know what responsibility is, and it has nothing to do with the way you're talking about it. We both feel that. We are people who take responsibility for things.
Yeah, and Rajiv, you said this earlier when we were talking about the ways that Machin Shin said something to Nynaeve that could have easily applied to Lan. And I think this scene, we see how similar they are in their characteristics and their upbringing and their goals and their lifestyle. Just everything about them fits seamlessly.
And it makes them such a good match because of it.
So much. And then he says, "Stay." And my heart just shattered into a million pieces.
Yes, it was beautiful. But less good was Rand's nightmare.
And we get a montage. I want to talk about the narrative things about this too. Unreliable narrators and things like that. I'd love to dig into that. But let's go into... I did catalog what all of the quick scenes that add up to a revelation are. We see Tam Althor's heron-marked sword. We see something that we thought was cut from the show, which is Tam's fevered muttering in the Westwood as he went from the farm back to the village. Tam talks about finding a baby, and that's where we see the rest of the cold open scene, where Tam does take off his helmet
terrible de-aging graphics.
Well, no, that's a different actor.
That's even worse.
But they did it with Ned Stark, so why not?
No, this was a very bad choice. I hated that moment. They looked nothing alike, which is obviously, well, and I have fairly significant face blindness, so I have a hard time recognizing people anyways, which is why I thought it was like a bad de-aging. That was a bad choice because you can't tell that it was Tam. The only reason you could tell it was Tam was because of his sword. Mm-hmm. Like, that was dumb. I was so mad. I hated that part.
Fair enough.
But I loved it because it was so sweet that, like, he's like, oh, here, let me help you give birth and cut the cord.
Yeah, and when he holds her hand and the look on her face just turns from, like, defensive and scared to, like...
oh, dear God, relief.
Yeah, grateful and... oh, it was beautiful.
In the midst of all this carnage, there's some humanity, there's some good. And that was definitely beautiful. And then, you know, interspersed with these scenes, Rand is starting to make bullseyes. He is hitting arrow after arrow. Then we get the scene back when he's locked in with Dana, and he knocks down that door, and now we see a weave, and it's a corrupted weave. It's Sidene.
Yes. And this makes me mad. This is the part I get mad about. When we see Logain Channel, he's got weaves. When we see Moraine Channel, she's got weaves. Right. When Rand channels, there's no weaves. This is like a cheap trick.
Until we decide to reveal that he can channel. Right.
Yes, because that was my main point for him not being the dragon, is like, oh, like there were no weaves there. We would have seen them because they've shown us weaves.
I think like the reasoning behind that was because the point of view was from Dana watching Rand.
I understand that argument. I don't think it holds water because just looking at all of episode 4, there are ways to indicate a point of view switch, which is, you know, you focus on the person's face and then you kind of look at the scene as if through their eyes.
Yeah.
And none of that has happened to differentiate between whether you see the weaves or not. You know, and that goes all the way back to the beginning of episode 1, where we don't see the weaves of Sidar when the nameless false dragon, he's not even a false dragon, he's a dude who can channel, gets taken down by Leandrin. They've been inconsistent about this.
Yeah, basically, I am ready. Rafe, please tell us. Because I will, once again, I trust the makers. I trust that there's reasoning behind this. Please tell us what it is because it's making me angry.
This was authorial withholding of information.
Honestly, I had less of a problem with that than a variety of other choices in this episode.
Oh, this is the one I nitpicked on.
Yeah.
I guess... yeah, I'll segue into this. There's some more stuff in the montage, but like I get the concept of an unreliable narrator. But to have an unreliable narrator, 1, you need a narrator, and 2, you have a reason for them to be unreliable.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily unreliable narrator for this so much as an artistic choice.
Yeah.
To tell this story.
This just felt like a cheap trick. Like, we're not going to show it purposefully because if we do, you're going to get too much information. Yeah. So it's like, well, then don't show it that way. Show it a different way. Yeah. Like, the logistics of the world are changing when we can see weaves and then all of a sudden not see weaves. And then now we can see weaves again.
Right.
Yeah. Basically, I'm just here to be excited for when we get what the rules are. Because I'm sure we have them. I can't wait for Rafe or Sarah or somebody to tell us what those rules are so that we can calm down. But that being said, look, surprise! Yeah,
there's a bunch of things that you didn't notice because it wasn't there on screen. And Rand is the dragon.
Rand is the dragon reborn.
But okay, let's keep going on this montage. So he recognizes Dragonmount. We called that out in previous podcast. Right here in this episode, Rand channels at the Trolloc who jumped at Egwene in the ways. And I know it's Rand because...
yes, you can see the corruption.
And then we get something that Machin Shin said to Rand that we hadn't heard before. It's you. You've always known it deep down, and you cannot escape your fate. You are the dragon reborn.
So, but now that leads to an interesting piece of information. How much does Machin Shin know And so is everything they say true.
Yeah. This is my take, and you can tell me if you think differently, because we do have another prophetess, another seer in this episode. But I think Machin Shin only tells people what they already know, but will hurt them the most.
Okay.
That's my take.
Yeah, I think Machin Shin is able to kind of pull things from the brain, like thoughts that you have, and able to make that real.
Yeah.
Like pull that into the head and say, hey, this is what you're thinking about. I'm going to pull your greatest fears and make them exist.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had a thought. The voices sound an awful lot like the corruption talking to Logain, even with a dynamic of men and female
women. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
talking. So is this just the corruption?
That is an
kind of a
interesting
physical
question.
form?
That is an
I mean,
interesting
it would
question.
make sense. The corruption is the reason that the ways are broken is because of
The corruption
the male
on Sidene.
channelers
Yeah.
creating and so it would make sense that it's the same voices, the same corruption
voices
coming in.
I think here, all evil stems from the Dark One. From Shadar Logoth to Machin Shin to everything. Visually, it's represented as darkness. And I think evil is the Dark One and good is the light. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah. A little bit more black and white in this.
Yeah. So Rand sort of has this epiphany, or at least he gives us access to his epiphany, since Moraine spilled the beans on Min, even though Min was wanting to keep it a secret. And I understand why Moraine did this. She's trying to grasp at giving any kind of trust and legitimacy to herself. He goes to Min, and she's cleaning up at the bar. Now he asks her, hey, Min, what am I?
How did Rand know that Min was a seer?
Oh, Maureen said so.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, cool. I missed
She
that.
said Min sees the future, quote unquote. So if
Gotcha.
Rand's holding a baby and Min can see the future, I'm going to assume nobody's dying.
Right. Which is totally interesting, because when she was a kid in Tarvalon, she ran into Tam and had a viewing of him. He was carrying the heron-marked blade, and she knew that he helped someone, an Aiel woman, give birth, a baby born on the slopes of Dragonmount. He went back to a sleepy village surrounded by 2 rivers and raised that boy, and the baby was something impossible. Then Rand kind of asks for more, and she says, rainbows and carnivals and 3 beautiful women. Ha ha. He asks her about the Eye of the World, and she says, yes, she does see it. But what's interesting here, especially given that baby viewing, is that she won't say if Rand makes it back.
Yeah.
Why not?
At least not on screen. Maybe she told him off screen and we don't see it, and it'll be revealed later.
Maybe, but Now given that montage, anything's possible. But like from this scene, she avoids the question. And, he actually takes it to mean that he won't come back. He says, I see. So I won't come back from the eye. And maybe she's doing it because it's one of those conditional viewings. He can't know. Otherwise, it'll...
That's possible.
Min reveals all of that. And now Rand says, okay, it's me. I'm the dragon. And then we have one of those fun door-knocking cutscenes where we start assembling in Nynaeve's room, I guess.
Yeah. I love Egwene's whole face and
She is so smug.
Yeah.
She's so smug.
Like,
and
you're
just like,
caught.
Where have you been?
Like she hasn't just rolled out of bed either.
Right.
Yeah, but she's
Right,
slept with
right.
Rand so many times. That's old news. But Nynaeve hasn't slept with anybody that she knows of. And so she knows where she was. And I loved that moment of bonding.
was fun.
It felt so real and authentic. And then
Yeah.
Nynaeve apologized.
That shocked
Nynaeve
me.
is a member of this group. She's
Yeah.
different from the book Nynaeve, who lorded it over the group. And in this one, she's a part of the group, and it's a cohesive group. With some fighting and whatnot, but she's not elevated above them. And I love that change. I think it's so much more interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, and then Perrin comes in too.
And he comes in at such a moment, like right when they're going to get to talking about, oh, I'm sorry about that
Details.
thing that I brought up. And, oh, Perrin's here. Hi, Perrin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm here, but I'm just here to shut off that conversation. So let's talk about whether we're going to go or not. And then there's a knock at the door. But at which door?
Oh, I know. I love a game. I love this whole trope of someone knocking on the door and you cut to the inside, then open, and you think it's Rand knocking on Nynaeve's door, but oh no, it's actually Lan outside Nynaeve's door. Rand is knocking on Moiraine's door, and you think it's got to be earlier than this because they've already left, and Moiraine masked the bond. Or before that, Rand is like, hey, yo, I'm the Dragon Reborn.
I'm a fan of the trope. I'll go for it. Rand makes his revelation to Moiraine, and there was a look of relief on Moraine's face. Nobody else has to die now, is how I interpreted that look.
100% same. Yeah, I liked this moment of, okay, cool. I'm the only one that's going to sacrifice myself now. Is kind of how I read that. And Moiraine masked the bond. I'm guessing that she probably did it before sexy time last night.
She's like,
I know what this means.
I don't need to be here for this.
Yeah,
you guys have fun.
It was perfect because it meant that they could sneak off into the Blight. Once again, felt the edges. It was too symmetrical.
Okay.
And too clean. There, it just, it was wrong.
What rubbed me the wrong way is, okay, this looked like a mangrove root swamp, but you know, without the actual mangrove trees, just the roots. But the Blight is where, even earlier in the episode, we heard Trolloc armies move through this. How the hell do they move through this?
Yeah. Very carefully.
Yeah. I had speculated that the Blight was gonna more desert, but with like a darkness, a Shadar Logoth darkness, kind of oozing and going through it, because that's how they represent the Dark One. But okay, now we have vegetation. We're not quite sure what dwells in here yet, but they're gonna be navigating through a root maze to the Eye of the World, and this, not how I saw it, not how I saw the Blight, but whatever. This is the moment more than anything else when I said, Moiraine really doesn't know what she's doing, does she?
No.
Because
She's trying her best, but no.
She's trying her best, but okay, if Trollocs are just like infesting the blights and things like that, she and Rand, a completely untrained boy in the power, are going,
and the sword,
and okay, he can shoot an arrow, but how are you going to do that in a root maze? I don't know. But they are just going in. They are going in here, kind of unprepared, kind of without equipment. And they're going to try and make their way to the Eye of the World, and there are Trolloc armies supposedly here, and they're going to get to the Eye of the World, and she's going to rely on Rand somehow pulling a rabbit out of the hat and defeating the Dark One. Because
it's the pattern.
It's the pattern, but
she's trusting the pattern.
That's a lot of faith.
Well, what do you expect? She found the frickin' Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
And
she's just been at the right place at the right time since this journey started.
Yeah.
With Kitara's foretelling, only she and Suan heard. Like, she's been able to track down the dragon. Yeah, she's so convinced that the pattern wants this, that it's going to happen no matter what.
Moraine's main plan, her main contingency is, well, if the dragon gets seduced by the dark side, she's going to kill him. And otherwise she's hoping for the best. Next episode, I fully see Moiraine paying for her hubris. It's not going to go how she expected. It's not going to go how Rand expected. But I think there's going to be a price to pay, and I think it's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it, but I can't wait for it.
I know. Me too.
I know.
Right.
We're so lucky. Thank you, Amazon, for letting us see this early that we can talk about it, but also so that we can give our thoughts before we can see what other people think.
It is a privilege.
Being able to getting to experience this moment, even if it's not my favorite. As I've stated, there's a lot of parts in this that I really loved. This episode is so powerful, and it's ramping up. I'm excited for next week. I still love the series. All of these things don't detract my love from the thing as an overarching goal, and I still blows my mind that this thing exists. Yeah. We get to watch this show.
I mean, fundamentally, we're all three of us and everyone at Dragonmount. The reason we're doing this, we're not getting paid for this. We are Wheel of Time fans. And, anything that actualizes that brings it to a larger audience. And, hopefully it just resonates with people to make them fall in love with something the way we fell in love with the books is great. I love being able to share my love for this thing.
Yes, me too. Very much so.
Agreed. And we're so lucky that the show is so good.
Oh, yeah. No, it has been fantastic. And I think this is probably my second favorite of the episodes after number 4. 4 is still my favorite, but I loved this episode. It just reached me on so many levels.
Well, this is all where it's all coming together, right? I mean, and that's what penultimate episodes do.
Daniel Henney as Lan is just my favorite.
Perfection.
No, and then him and Nynaeve parts, like, that's what I'm in this for. Like, the more interaction they have, the happier I am.
Yeah.
And, I think I'm probably in the minority, but, like, most of these characters on the show are not going to replace the mental images I have in my mind from the books, but Daniel Henney might actually. He's so charismatic that
I love it.
Yeah.
He does this noise when in episode 4 when he's flirting with Nynaeve and and he says, "You're exactly what I thought you'd be, Wisdom Almira," and he makes this noise like and he did it again in this episode, and I was like, oh my gosh, my heart just can't take it. So if we ever get him to Jordan Con, I need him to do that noise for me, and I'll have it be my ringtone.
Oh, damn!
There
Jordan
we go.
Con,
We'll work on that. Until then, this is not the ending, but it's an ending. Before we actually end, let's remind you to hang out with us on Dragonmount.com. You can support this show and the other content that we create by going to Patreon.com/Dragonmount, and then go to Dragonmount.com where you can find links to all of our social media. You will find blog posts, both individual episode recaps as well as full breakdowns of everything that happens for each episode. And you will also find a variety of other articles there. And you can link out to our social media, our YouTube channel, where we have hot takes and cooking recipes, all sorts of good things coming there. Instagram. Our Instagram stories are popping, especially since the founder of Dragonmount was hanging out with Harriet.
that was so cool.
Robert Jordan's widow in Charleston. There's a whole series of AMAs that he did while he was down there that are really cool. So highly check out that. And on Saturdays after the show launches, we have Thom and friends, usually Kitty and our very own Maureen, hang out and talk live with you. So if you have thoughts that you want to give and you aren't lucky enough to have a podcast like ours to sit and talk to your friends about, come and talk to us. We want to hear from you. We want to talk to you. We want to get all of that good information from you. And then, of course, on Twitter, all sorts of goodies all over there. Okay.
Just real quick, I want to throw this out. Last Saturday when I was talking with Thom and Kitty, I was thinking about how Alana mentions Moraine has a dog that comes and sees her. And I was wondering, what if that's Suan with the Mask of Mirrors?
Oh my gosh. Hilarious. That would be so funny. So many goodies for book readers here. Starting with the very top and Tigraine and you get to see our first Andor queen, basically, or princess. Did she ever become
Daughter
queen?
heir.
Daughter
She's
heir.
the daughter heir.
Daughter
Yeah,
heir
daughter
who
heir.
received a foretelling, said, "You got to go out to
Get
the
outta
waste.
here."
You got to get to the
From
waste."
Guittara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Guittara Sedai, the same one who foretold Rhaen's birth.
So she knew what had to get done, and man, she wished she was.
And I guess she learned pretty quickly how to use those spears. Yeah.
Well, at least I mean, a couple
It
years.
took her a long time.
Yeah.
She was the slowest, and it took her the longest, but she did eventually take her vows.
Yeah. So I mean, because she was out there for a couple of years, long enough for her to become like fully Aiel
Yeah.
and embrace.
Yeah, she was
that.
just as skilled, but it took her so much longer.
Yeah,
And
which
her-
makes sense because she started as an adult.
Yeah, and
not
her
as a
name
baby.
was the name she took for herself was Shail, the truly dedicated. So like dedicated, but on top of that,
Yes, she knew what she had to do, and she did it, and was successful, and gave birth in the snow in the middle of a battle. But you know that's cool.
and in the books, Tam did not see her alive. She was dead.
No. No.
And
She was already
the baby had been born, and it was freezing in the cold, and he wrapped it in a cloak, and he did cut the cord, but you know that was. I liked this version because
I liked
it showed
this
that
connection.
compassion.
Yeah. It showed the connection that Tam had with the baby in a way that, I mean, obviously finding a baby on a ground, you're not gonna just okay, I'm gonna leave it. Like
Yeah.
Nah, he's a
yeah,
good
but
man.
helping her give birth, I think, was that extra moment of
And even just choosing to help her give birth
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
killing
instead
her.
of killing her. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really special.
I love
Okay,
Tam, by
so-
the way. I have a whole headcanon about Tam.
I adore him as well.
Yes, he's fantastic.
And the actor that plays Tam, coming from
Isn't his
playing
name
a
Bruce
Bolton,
Bolton? Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, in Game of Thrones, to being the epitome. So, like, the worst father to the best father is really powerful, which I just loved.
Padan Fane. So, you know, Fane right now is being revealed. This doesn't come up until The Great Hunt, really, in the books, but Fane is being revealed to be sort of an uber dark friend. He's a dark friend who has special powers. He can control, or at least he can talk to Machin Shin. And before, there was, in the books, he has a kinship. He senses a kinship because he has the dagger. And that's what I wonder if he already has.
No,
the
he doesn't
dagger.
have the dagger here.
We don't know. We don't know what has happened.
No,
since
I'm
then.
I'm saying in the books he sees the connection with Mashin
Oh, you're
Shin
right, you're
because of
right.
the connection with Shadar Logoth.
Yes, you're right. Because
So
he was
that's-
taken over by Mashadar. Sorry, it's not Mashadar. It's Mordeth. Sorry, Mordeth.
Mordeth.
Mordeth,
possesses Fane.
Yeah.
And that's how he can make friends with Machin Shin, who senses both a connection, a kinship, as well as fears him, which is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're prepping him for maybe a Shaidar Haran position, that he's just
That would be totally cool.
the right hand
I
of
would be
the
into
Dark
that.
One, because he's not phased by any of the darkness.
And he's so, like, he's got a swagger to him. He's whistling in the dark of
No,
the waves.
he's so swag.
And
Such swag, major
Yeah,
swag.
and the Fane in the book was not that
No.
way. He was an
No.
anxious
he
little
was a wretched
weirdo.
guy who was like Gollum
Yes.
at first, you know, and following
Yeah.
them through the ways was like Gollum following through Moria,
Yeah.
until he was reunited with the dagger and kind of came into his power.
Well,
Right.
and then in the future when he like joins with the White Cloaks, and also when he talks to the Shanshin, both point of views where you have the leaders that Fane is talking to them, or whatever he goes by at the time, are talking about how this little man flips between
He changes accents. He
yeah, but also
talks
like he has the ownership of being a king to this like scared little thing. And so I kind of like that they're making this almost like I think it's going to be a big bad that's going to go across the different seasons. It's not going to be the big
Yeah.
bad, but like is a way to kind of connect the Dark One in a way that's more real and more tangible.
And like what Maureen said, if he replaces Shaidar Haran, I wouldn't mind that at all. I think, you know, in the books, to be honest, he fizzled out. He had all of this potential, and then he just sort of gets it.
Yeah, but I think there's something to be said about having a super fade be there.
I mean, he might morph. Who knows? I'll take it, whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't know, but either way, I'm excited to see what happens, and I'm excited to see how they bring Matt back in.
Let's talk about Matt, because this is where I think his arc is going in such a different direction, and you know, part of it is COVID. You know, they're not going to be able to well, who knows? The way I see it right now is they're not going to be able to find the horn at the Eye of the World, because the Eye of the World is now Sheol Ghul as well. So,
well, no, hold on, I'm going to argue with that.
Okay.
Maureen and Swan think that that's where Sheol Ghul is. I don't think that actually is.
No?
I think it's all the pattern weaving it. I don't think that the Dark One is holed up there.
Okay.
No.
I hope not, but you know, I think they're conflating a lot of things for efficiency, and you know, I don't know,
100%.
like everybody in the world in the books knows that the Dark One is sealed in Sheol Ghul with the Forsaken, sealed there by the Creator, blah 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 blah.
At the moment of creation.
At the moment of creation, right. So Sheol Ghul is a thing that is known as a catechism. And they're talking about the Eye of the World as though it were Sheol Ghul right now. And, you know, maybe they're wrong and there's a revelation to be had, but that feels needlessly complicated.
I think this is just the way that the pattern is getting them to go there. I think it could be where the boar is and where the seal is. I don't think it's actual Sheol Ghul. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to touch the Dark One or any of that, blah, blah, whatever, especially because it's only a day away from Faldara. There's no way. Like, it's way too close. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I agree. And isn't Malkir a day north of Faldara?
Everything's a day away from Faldara.
Everything's a day. I mean, it was a day in the ways. They barely slept there, so it was a day from Tarvalon to Faldara. Like, I don't
that doesn't
even Agilmar.
Yeah.
Agilmar mentioned that it's always been their responsibility to guard the blight,
Right.
but it wasn't. 40 years ago, it was Malkir's, and Malkir fell, and then it was Shinar. So I'm wondering if they're moving Malkir slightly to the east or west.
Yeah. That may be really
it's not
inside
directly
pull
about-
I don't
at
know,
that
but
point.
Tarwin's Gap was kind of always that line, though.
Yeah.
Tarwin's Gap kind of was meaningful.
Yeah, because Malkir was beyond the Mountains of Doom. So it was kind of doomed to begin with.
I don't know. Either way, everything's a day. You know, that's going to be a meme. Everything's a
But
day
I mean,
from
like,
Faldara.
can we speculate now? Like, what's going to be Matt's arc? Is he going to be hunting for the horn? Is there going to be a horn?
I think
No
What
idea.
do we do now with Matt? The Red Aja's after him.
Yeah, I think what they're going to do is they're going to have Matt look for the dagger in Tarvalon, and that's how they're going to reconnect. And so they're going to, I think, after whatever happens next episode, I think the second episode is they get back to Tarvalon with the horn, and then maybe Fane steals the horn from Tarvalon instead from Faldara, and that
Although why
also has
put
the
Fane
dagger.
in Faldara then, if he's not going to do his thing in Faldara? Because he was in Tarvalon, he could have stayed there,
Right. But the horn wasn't, and the dagger wasn't disconnected yet. His goal from the Dark One, in the books anyways, is to get the dragon and to get the other Two Rivers folks.
Well, he hates
So-
everyone. He wants to kill the Two Rivers folks. He wants to kill the Dark One.
He doesn't want to. He's being forced to kill them.
Well, when he gets freed, he sort of adopts, he becomes this hybrid creature. I don't think there's going to be hybrid creatures in here. I think he's either a creature fully of the Dark One.
Yeah, I agree. It's too complicated if we make them all a hybrid. Yeah, but with Matt, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm completely drawing a blank. I am still so sad that
that you were
Rand
wrong.
didn't channel
I'm sorry.
and open the gateway
yeah.
and pull Matt in.
Right. So
Breaks my heart. And I thought I read it somewhere, honestly, that once the gateway closes and Matt was left behind, that the dragon's true power was revealed. And so I was like, oh, well, that means Rand's going to channel and open up the Waygate again, because Moraine just stressed so importantly, watch Matt. Like, he's your responsibility now. And so I thought that would be enough to trigger Rand's, instinctual channeling.
Yeah.
But nope, I guess not.
No.
I mean,
Sorry.
that's a reasonable theory. Like, if we were speculating out, I totally buy that evidence. Because Rand would do that. That would be enough of a stressor on Rand. And it sort of was for him to do something. Yeah, like I said, my theory was that Rand would reveal himself when Machin Shin showed up.
Nope, just a nightmare.
All right. So, wait, where do we fall? Does Padan Fain have the dagger already or no?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. All right. Do we know how he is able to not be affected by Machin Shin or even
Shidar Logoth, and that connection with the Dark One that he has.
Okay, so the connection with the Dark One.
Again, so that leads me back to the Shidar Haran. Like, he's got to be the ultimate combination of all dark creatures.
Yeah, I could take that. I want to get into a viewing that men
Yes.
had, and it's the Sparks viewing, and we got an abridged version of that speech, but in the books, Min's viewing about the Sparks means that when they are all together, they are stronger. They have a fighting chance against the Shadow. It wasn't that way when they were apart. When she viewed them apart, the Shadow was winning. But when they were together, it's starting to hold back the dark. And Moraine listens to that viewing, and she concludes that all of these folks are important and need to be together in order for this to work. And Show Moraine says, nah, to save lives, I need to just take the dragon, the one chosen one, and separate him from the rest of these people who are equally important to the pattern for some reason. And then we're going to do that.
My thought is that the viewing, whatever is making them go to the Eye of the World, that reasoning to go there has something about that viewing or that dream or that whatever is saying that anyone else that goes will die.
Yeah.
And so in order to succeed, she has to only take the dragon so that nobody else will die, so that they can still live to beat him later. Like, to take care of everything else.
Do we think Moraine is being deceived by Ishamael there?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because, so Juan's having dreams that she's seeing the Eye of the World, and the dragon has to go by himself, or else everyone dies. Like, they're just...
Don't bring
leaving
any
Rand
friends.
alone.
Don't bring any allies.
Right.
By all means,
exactly.
don't bring an army.
And,
Don't call the cops, y'all.
That's right. Exactly.
and so it's so stupid.
Okay.
Like, Moraine and Siwan are not this dumb.
No. Okay, audience, I'm going to talk directly to you. If somebody gets kidnapped and they say bring $1 million or whatever to this thing, don't tell the cops. Tell the cops. Always tell the cops.
Never trust Ishamael.
Yeah, the baby. What is that?
We know from the books about Min's relationship with Rand.
Yeah.
She's going to be his
Min is
lover.
one of
She's
the
going to
three.
have his babies eventually. And if this is that, then I thought it was really interesting that she lied to Moraine, saying, I don't know whose baby that is.
Honestly, I don't think that's super interesting because she lies about that in the books too.
Well, no, I understand. But the reason I say that's interesting is she has also already transferred loyalty. She has a special loyalty to Rand that she does not have to Moraine.
I think it's more of she has a loyalty to herself.
Yeah.
And the relationship that's going to happen, it's not necessarily about Rand right now because she has that connection with him, but he doesn't know it yet. And she's been burned in these situations before. However, the baby thing concerns me because in the books, the first babies that come are Elaine's and they're twins.
Yeah.
And then somehow Avienda has a billion.
Quadruplets.
But there's no conversation about Min ever having children.
Well, there is a viewing about all of them having children by Rand.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of time. Like, it'll be later when, spoilers for Memory of Light, in Moradin's body, he goes up and hooks up with all of them later. So, they're going to do that. I think it probably doesn't matter. Well, it does matter for Elaine's arc because Elaine does some frankly stupid things but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I can't wait to fall in love with Elaine more than I do in the books.
Fair enough.
Let me just put it that way.
Fair enough.
Okay, so in this book discussion, I just want to say how boring Min was. She was not sassy. She was not like attitude. She wasn't. She was more just depressed, and that was really sad for me.
Yeah, I think Jason Denzel, who's the founder of Dragonmount, we were all having a discussion with him over chat, and he was not completely sold on Min either. He liked the actor, he liked the character, but like the way it was presented. And I think the difference is that in where we're meeting Min. In the books, we met Min in Berlon. There was still this sense of wonder thing happening where the characters are discovering a bigger world, are kind of having fun with it. Even though they're in danger, they're still like, wide-eyed and saying, oh, wow, there's so much more to explore. And Min is kind of flirty. She's teasing. She makes Rand uncomfortable, but in a good way. And, it's great. But right now, we are in a place where they all think they're going to die. That's what's primarily on their minds. And who is the dragon? Who is not going to die when all of their friends are going to die? That's the question right now. And even further than that, Rand and Egwene, they had kind of reconciled. I thought they were going to become like, okay, we're reconciled that we're not going to be romantic partners anymore. We're going to be friends. But it sort of reconverged, and Min doesn't have an opening there to flirt.
Yeah, but I think even just her interactions with Maureen were so stilted. Yeah. And I will say this is the first time that a character has not felt right.
Yeah. I thought Min on the show seemed more like the internal monologue Min in the books. Like, Min in the books puts up a much sassier front, but inside she is tortured, that she has these visions that can't change. She can reveal them, she can warn people, but the horrible things that she sees is going to happen are going to happen. And that's like really depressing to her, but she doesn't let on with it. She's actually kind of publicly an upbeat person. And that is so important for Rand as he descends into the sort of the crushing responsibility and darkness, is that he has someone who is going to tease him and is going to like make him feel like a young man again. Yeah. Laughter and tears, as we know.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
But right now,
this Min is also in the Aes Sedai's pocket. The Min in Berlon was not.
Totally.
She had her life. She had her freedom. This one is like, Maureen's like, you're lucky you're here and you get to live your life. And it's thanks to me and my sisters.
Yep.
And so she's in a box. And that's definitely going to change her personality.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a good point. And I think it'll be really interesting if we get to have Elmendretta and have her go to the tower and all of that. I don't know. I hope that we get joyous Min and sassy,
I do too,
snarky Min at some point in the future.
My prediction is the reason we had the Steppen episode with the consequences of the Aes Sedai dying and the consequence to the warder is that we're going to lose Maureen in the finale.
In this season, you think Maureen's going to die next
I
episode?
think she's going to quote unquote die in the confrontation at the Eye of the World.
Interesting. So I think she's going to have the same dying moment in the books, but I don't think she's going to come back. If we get to go to the end of the story, I don't think she's going to return.
Although she is the biggest name actor right now in that, so
exactly.
That would surprise me.
To be fair, we know that she's filming season 2.
Yeah.
So she's not going to die.
Right. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Not that, I'm going to like hold this over you on how correct I am. But
well, I put down all of my predictions in writing on my own blog, and I love doing this. I love making the predictions and having them proven wrong, and saying, okay, I'm going to eat crow here, here, and here. But hey, I was close here.
Yeah. Well, I like being correct. So.
Fair enough.
Is that it? Are we good?
Yeah, I didn't think I had anything else.
All right, with that, we have reached the end of this episode. But once again, this is the ending, but it is an ending. I'm Kathy.
I'm Rajiv.
And I'm Maureen.
Oh my gosh, join us next week for the finale. Get ready for the emotions. Have a great day.